You can lose things in this life. You can lose money, lose friends, lose plans you thought were certain. Life has a way of shaking your foundation, removing what you thought you needed, and leaving you with nothing but yourself. And when that moment comes, when the noise fades and the crowd disappears, you will have to answer one question: who are you when there is nothing left to hold on to? Your value has never been defined by what you own, what you wear, or what you can show the world. It has never been measured by the size of your house, the weight of your bank account, the brand of your shoes, or the labels stitched across your clothes. Those things are temporary. They can be gained and lost. They can be given and taken. The world loves to convince you that your worth is attached to possessions, but possessions are only reflections of circumstances, not reflections of character. You can lose money overnight. You can lose opportunities you were certain were meant for you. You can lose relationships that once felt unbreakable. None of those losses reduce your value. They do not rewrite who you are at your core. They only reveal how attached you were to things that were never permanent to begin with. The truth is, life will test you by stripping away the things you believed were essential. It will take away support you thought you could rely on. It will remove comfort you believed you needed, and when it does, the world will watch to see how you respond. Some people crumble when life removes the visible signs of success. They believe that without those external markers, they somehow become less. But the ones who rise, the ones who endure, the ones who continue forward, are those who understand that identity is not built from the outside in. It is built from the inside out. Your value exists in your resilience, in your ability to remain yourself when the world tries to reshape you. It exists in your ability to keep standing when comfort disappears. It exists in your willingness to keep believing when evidence is nowhere in sight. You are not the car you drive, the phone in your hand, the apartment you live in, the job title next to your name, or the achievements you list when introducing yourself. You are the person who keeps going after loss, the person who chooses integrity when no one is watching, the person who refuses to let circumstances dictate identity. Strength is discovered when everything external is removed and you are forced to face yourself without distraction. That is where you learn what can never be taken from you. That is where worth lies, in the quiet, in the struggle, in the unseen. People may judge your value by what they can observe, but life has always judged your value by what you can survive. And survival has nothing to do with possessions. Survival has everything to do with endurance, with courage, with the decision to remain yourself even when the world gives you every reason not to. When you understand this, loss becomes less frightening, because losing something outside of you no longer means losing something within you. Your identity becomes your foundation becomes your strength, and your strength becomes the one thing the world can never take away. Sacrifice is the quiet price of becoming someone greater than you are today. It is the toll life demands at the gates of transformation. Nothing changes for free. Nothing improves without cost. When you decide to grow, the universe does not simply hand you a new version of yourself. It asks you to give up something in return: comfort, ego, old habits, familiar faces, the parts of your identity that once made sense but no longer serve where you are going. And that process is rarely clean. It does not feel heroic or beautiful while it is happening. Most of the time it feels like loss. Sacrifice is misunderstood because people see the outcome of growth, but they do not see the quiet battles that create it. They see someone confident, but they do not see the nights spent questioning everything. They see discipline, but they do not see the exhaustion. They see achievement, but they do not see the thousand silent moments where someone chose effort over ease. Sacrifice is what separates desire from destiny. Many people want change, but few are willing to surrender who they are in order to become who they could be. They hold on to the familiar, even when the familiar is the very thing holding them back. You cannot carry old weight into a new life. Every breakthrough has a cost. You might have to walk away from people who no longer understand your direction. You might have to leave behind routines that are comfortable but limiting. You might have to give up short-term pleasure in exchange for long-term strength. You might have to accept being misunderstood. And sometimes the deepest sacrifices are the ones no one notices. Waking up earlier when everyone else sleeps. Working on yourself while others waste time. Saying no to distractions. Choosing discipline when you are tired. Believing in yourself when external validation is absent. Sacrifice teaches clarity. When you willingly give something up, you learn what truly matters. You learn that survival is not the same as living. You learn that growth requires discomfort. You learn that your mind is stronger than your circumstances. The path of sacrifice is rarely crowded because it demands patience and pain tolerance. It demands the willingness to confront your weaknesses rather than hide from them. But the transformation it creates is unmistakable. It produces a quiet confidence that does not need to be announced, a strength that does not need to be proven, a character that does not crumble when challenged. People will question your sacrifices because they cannot see the future you are building. They only see what you are losing, not what you are becoming. That is why sacrifice often feels lonely. You are walking towards something others cannot yet understand, but that is what makes the process valuable. You are shaping yourself into someone who does not break when life becomes heavy, someone who chooses purpose over pleasure, someone who can withstand the storms that once would have defeated you. Losing comfort does not mean you have failed. Losing stability does not mean your life is falling apart. Sometimes life removes what is familiar so that you can discover who you are without it. Growth rarely happens when everything is easy. Growth happens when you are pushed into places that are uncomfortable, uncertain, and unfamiliar. The world teaches us to fear loss as if loss is the end of the story, but often loss is the beginning. When something leaves your life, it creates space to think, space to question, space to rebuild with intention rather than habit. There are moments when it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers. People you thought would always be there start to distance themselves. Plans you believed were solid fall apart without warning. The comfort you held onto suddenly disappears, leaving you exposed to a reality you never asked for. But it is in these moments that you learn what stability truly is. Stability is not found in circumstances. Stability is found in the foundation inside you, the core of who you are. If your identity rests on external things, then losing them will always break you. But if your identity rests on something deeper, something internal, loss becomes a teacher rather than a threat. You learn how strong you are when you have no choice but to be strong. You learn how resilient your spirit is when you are forced to adapt to what you never imagined facing. You learn that certainty was only an illusion, and that the only thing you ever truly owned was your response. Losing material things, losing comfort, losing plans you were once proud of, does not erase your value. It does not rewrite your story. It only reveals how much of your worth you attach to things outside of yourself. There are people who spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. They cling to what is familiar even when it limits them. They choose routines that keep them safe but stagnant. They choose people who keep them comfortable but small. Comfort becomes a cage disguised as peace, and when discomfort arrives, they panic, believing something has gone wrong. But those who understand growth know that discomfort is often a sign that something new is forming. A new mindset, a new level of discipline, a new version of self. Losing comfort means you are stepping into unknown territory, and the unknown is where identity is tested. When the familiar is gone, you are forced to choose who you will be without it. Will you collapse into self-pity, believing that loss means life is against you? Or will you learn to stand taller, knowing that what remains inside you is stronger than what was taken away? Loss asks you to look inward. Loss removes the illusions you once relied on. Loss shows you what cannot be taken from you. And when you realize that your value did not disappear with the things you lost, something shifts inside you. You stop fearing change. You stop fearing uncertainty. You stop fearing the moment life asks you to let go. There will be times when the weight of the world feels too heavy, when the expectations of others begin to crush your sense of self. You may feel like you are being pulled in 1,000 different directions, trying to satisfy everyone, trying to keep every promise, trying to maintain every relationship, trying to meet every standard. But no matter how much you give, no matter how hard you try, there will always be someone who wants more. Someone who thinks you are not doing enough. Someone who believes you should bend just a little further, sacrifice just a little deeper. And in that effort to please, to be accepted, to be understood, you may begin to drift away from who you are. You may start silencing your own voice, burying your own needs, ignoring that internal whisper that tells you what feels right, what feels true, what feels like you. The world will always have opinions. People will always have expectations. There will always be someone ready to tell you who you should be, how you should think, how you should live, how you should speak, how you should dream. And if you are not careful, you will wake up one day realizing that you are living a life designed by other people, a life that does not belong to you, a life that feels too small for your spirit. There is a quiet kind of pain that comes from losing yourself while trying to hold on to others. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, but it is deep. It is the kind of pain that settles in your chest and slowly drains your energy, your joy, your sense of presence in your own life. But there is a moment, sometimes small, sometimes sudden, when something inside you refuses to shrink any further. A moment when you realize that your identity is not negotiable, your truth is not optional, your inner voice is not something to be silenced for the comfort of others. And when that moment comes, it requires courage. The courage to say no where you once said yes, the courage to step away from people who love the version of you that hides, the courage to disappoint those who expected you to remain quiet. Choosing yourself will not always be applauded. It will not always be understood. Some will call it selfish. Some will say you changed. Some will question your loyalty. But the real question is, how loyal were you ever allowed to be to yourself? To choose yourself is to reclaim your voice, your boundaries, your dignity. It is to remember that you are allowed to want things that others do not understand. You are allowed to grow in directions that others cannot follow. You are allowed to protect your peace, your mental space, your emotional health. You are allowed to exist in your fullness without apologizing for it. And if choosing yourself means losing people who only loved you when you were silent, then those were not losses, they were revelations of truth. Because the people meant for you will never require you to disappear in order to stay. There will come a time in life when standing alone feels like the only option, when the room is silent, the phone doesn't ring, and the people you once leaned on are nowhere to be found. You will look around and question how you got here, how everything became so quiet, how the world seemed so full one day and so empty the next. But solitude has a way of revealing what noise once covered. When the crowd clears, the applause fades, and the spotlight shuts off, you are left with one person, yourself. And in that stillness, you learn who you really are, not who you pretended to be, not who you were pressured to be, and not who others expected you to be, but who you are at your core. Being alone is not a punishment, it is a mirror. It shows you your strengths, your weaknesses, your desires, your fears, the places you're growing and the places you're hiding. The silence is uncomfortable because it forces truth to the surface. The truth about the people you used to call friends, who only stayed when it benefited them. The truth about the habits you developed just to cope. The truth about the dreams you swallowed because they didn't seem realistic to others. When there is no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one to validate you, that is when you start to understand your real value, not the value based on approval, but the value rooted in existence. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the pain of being without others. Solitude is the peace of being with yourself. But to reach solitude, you must walk through loneliness. You must face the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being seen as different. Most people run back to the crowd before they ever meet themselves. They would rather fit in than stand firm. They would rather stay small than risk being real. They would rather be accepted than be authentic. But there is something powerful about a person who has met themselves fully, who knows their heart, their purpose, their worth, and refuses to shrink for anyone. Sometimes life removes people not to hurt you, but to clear space, space for growth, space for clarity, space for new levels of self-respect, because you cannot rise while holding on to what was weighing you down. And you cannot become who you are meant to be while trying to keep everyone comfortable. There are seasons where you train in the dark, seasons where no one claps for you, seasons where the progress is quiet, internal, unseen. And those seasons are sacred. That is where resilience is built, where character is formed, where your inner foundation becomes unshakable. When you learn how to walk alone, you learn how to walk anywhere. You learn that your strength was never in the crowd, your power was never in being praised, your value was never tied to who stayed or who left. Your strength was always in you. Life will test your resilience in ways you never imagined. It won't always come as a dramatic storm. Sometimes it's a slow erosion, a constant pressure that wears at your edges day after day. It shows up in the disappointments that sting a little deeper than they should, in the failures that seem to repeat themselves no matter how hard you try, in the small moments where you question whether the effort is even worth it anymore. You will feel tired, frustrated, and sometimes broken. But resilience isn't built in the moments where everything is going well. It's built in the quiet, heavy moments where you choose to stand up again even when there's no applause, no encouragement, and no guarantees. The world has a way of seeing how badly you want something, and it will demand proof, not through your words, but through your endurance. Resilience is not just strength, it is patience with purpose. It is the willingness to stay committed even when progress is invisible. It is the discipline to continue showing up, even when the results are delayed, unclear, or far away. It means learning how to breathe through the frustration instead of letting it control you. It means pushing through the doubt instead of letting it swallow you. It means remembering why you started even when the journey feels longer than you expected. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who feel confident all the time. They are the ones who continue moving forward even when they don't. They keep going because something deep inside refuses to quit. There will be days when you question your worth, days when the mirror doesn't reflect the person you thought you would be by now, days when the voice in your head is louder than the one in your heart. But resilience grows when you dare to challenge that voice, when you speak truth to your own doubt, when you remind yourself that you are still here. You may have been knocked down, but you were not defeated. You may have lost opportunities, but you didn't lose your potential. You may have been underestimated, but that does not define your value. Every setback is a teacher, every disappointment is training, every failure is shaping something within you that cannot be taken away. The path to becoming resilient is uncomfortable because it pushes you past the limits you once thought you had. You learn that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to continue through it. You learn that courage is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and steady. It's waking up and choosing to try again. It's refusing to let one bad day turn into a surrender. It's believing that the story is not over just because this chapter is difficult. And every step you take, no matter how small, is proof that you are stronger than the moment trying to break you. You survive the struggle, and you become someone the struggle can no longer control. There will be moments in your life when the vision you hold in your heart will make perfect sense to you and almost no sense to anyone else. The people around you may not understand why you work the way you do. why you sacrifice sleep, comfort, time, or why you push so hard for something that has no guarantee. You may try to explain it to make others see what you see, but their eyes were not given your view. They were not shown the picture you were shown, they were not handed your calling, and because they cannot see it, they will question it. Some will doubt you softly, out of concern. Others will doubt you loudly, out of fear. And some will doubt you silently, because your movement reminds them of their own stillness. You will learn that not everyone who is close to you is meant to understand your journey. Some people love you, but cannot support your growth because your growth challenges their comfort. Some care about you, but cannot walk with you because your path demands a strength they have not yet built. And some will stand beside you, but not behind you, cheering only when it's easy, present only when it's popular. This is where belief becomes personal. Not shared belief, not collective belief, not belief built on encouragement or applause, but belief rooted in the quiet truth inside your own spirit. Belief that does not require permission. Belief that does not need validation. Belief that whispers keep going, even when the world is shaking its head at you. Following your own path means choosing the road that does not come with a map. You will take steps before you see where they lead. You will invest before you receive the return. You will plant seeds long before the harvest, and you will wait in seasons where nothing seems to be growing, even though everything inside you tells you something is happening beneath the surface. Doubt will visit you, fear will test you, loneliness will sit with you, but belief is the quiet fire that keeps burning even in the coldest nights. It refuses to die. It refuses to weaken. It refuses to let the dream fade just because the world is slow to notice. You may find yourself standing alone at times, choosing to bet on yourself when no one else is willing to place that same bet. And that is not a sign that you are wrong. It is often the first sign that you are on the right path. The greatest breakthroughs in history did not happen in crowded rooms of approval. They happened in the silence of people who continued to trust their vision when no one applauded, no one encouraged, and no one understood. The world does not recognize greatness at the start. It recognizes it only after it refuses to disappear, and you must refuse to disappear. Every journey worth taking requires sacrifice. Not the kind of sacrifice that is convenient, comfortable, or easy, but the kind that stretches your heart, tests your patience, and challenges your identity. When you decide to change your life, you don't just add new habits or dreams, you let go of pieces of who you used to be. You let go of routines that kept you safe, environments that kept you small, and relationships that kept you limited. Growth always requires a trade. You cannot become more while holding on to everything you once were. Sooner or later, you must decide what matters enough to stay and what must be released so your hands are free to build something better. There will be moments when the sacrifice feels unfair, when you watch others move through life with ease while you fight battles no one can see, when you stay up late to work while everyone else sleeps, when you turn down distractions, decline invitations, and create distance from the people who no longer match your pace. You will wonder why your path requires so much effort. But greatness has always been demanding. The extraordinary has always been expensive. Nothing valuable has ever been built without a cost, and the cost is usually paid in silence, without celebration, without applause, without recognition. The sacrifice is unseen, but the results are undeniable. Sometimes the hardest sacrifices are not physical, they are emotional. You will have to let go of the version of yourself that was comfortable being average. You will have to release the identity that needed approval, the one that wanted to be liked, the one that settled for less to avoid discomfort. You will have to sacrifice the familiar for the unknown, and that is one of the hardest transitions a person can make. But the unknown is where growth lies. The unknown is where courage is born. The unknown is where the future waits for you to step forward. People will not always understand the sacrifices you make. They may say you are cold for being more selective with your time. They may call you distant for protecting your peace. They may call you obsessed for being dedicated. But obsession is what mastery looks like, and protecting your peace is what maturity looks like. They will not see the vision the way you see it because they are not carrying your purpose. You cannot expect those who are not given your dream to understand why you are willing to give up so much to achieve it. Sacrifice is proof of how much your future means to you. It is evidence of your priorities. It is a declaration that what you are building is worth the discomfort, the loneliness, the hard days, and the slow progress. And one day, when the results begin to show, when the opportunities begin to open, when your life begins to look like the vision you once held quietly inside your chest, the sacrifice will not be remembered as suffering, it will be remembered as the turning point where everything changed.